Welcome to our deep dive into deep work. I have to admit, even prepping for this has me rethinking my time. This book really gets into intense focus in a world of distractions. And we're going deep here. We've got excerpts ready to analyze and pull out the most valuable insights. So, expert speaker ready for some serious concentration.
I am always up for focused exploration.
Hmm.
And what we'll uncover is deep work isn't just about productivity hacks, It's becoming essential, a key skill.
Okay, unpack that. The book opens with this story. Nate Silver, the election forecaster, nailed 2012.
Right, and what's fascinating is it wasn't luck. The book shows how he mastered these complex data analysis tools, like really understanding them, not just numbers. That deep work, it supported abilities that are more valuable now. Think about it. The more data and tech, the more those who can work with it, not just be around it, stand out.
It's like going deep is more valuable because everything's so fast and surface level. They bring this idea from the second machine age, another book, arguing tech gives an advantage to a few groups.
Exactly, yeah. The first group is those who can collaborate with these intelligent machines, like Silver, who used those tools to analyze massive data, not just use technology, but understand it deeply.
The second group are what they call superstars, the best. The book uses the programmer, David Heinemeier Hansson, created Ruby on Rails. He's so good, tech helps him stand out even more.
Right. And then the third group, access to capital. They use venture capitalist, John Doerr, early investor in Instagram, acquired for $1 billion, but only 13 employees. Small amount of labor, huge value.
A lot to digest. But the book then makes this connection, economic shift, deep work. They argue in this fast-changing environment, learning hard things quickly is crucial. And guess what? Learning is deep work.
Makes sense, right? To grasp something complex, you need focus. No distractions, no multitasking. But then the book points out that focus is getting harder. This always-on world.
So paradox. Deep work is valuable, but rare. The book highlights trends working against deep work. One is open office spaces.
Right, they use Facebook and Square. Encourage collaboration, chance encounters. Sounds nice, but...
But the constant buzz, conversations, tough to focus on individual, sustained work.
Yeah.
And not just the space.
Absolutely. Think about communication tools like Slack. Constant interruption. Always available. No room for depth.
And then content creators, even at established places like the New York Times, this pressure, constant social media presence, important for some, but for writers, researchers, distraction.
It is, yeah. Feeds this paradox. Deep work benefits like innovation, deeper thinking, arguably greater yet less common.
Trading our ability to do the most valuable work for maybe less important stuff, a wake-up call. Then there's this metric black hole. What's that about?
It's about the difficulty of measuring productivity and, knowledge work. The book starts with Tom Cochran, CTO of Atlantic Media, curious about time, money spent on email.
Gather data.
Yeah. Tracked everything. Email sent, received, length, even typing speed. Combine that with salary info to calculate the cost of email. Over $1 million a year. Each message, like 95 cents in labor. Compared it to a small company, Learjet. Seemingly harmless, but hidden costs.
Makes you think, all that busy work, is it truly productive? Especially knowledge workers, output isn't always tangible.
That's the metric black hole. Unlike academics, they have metrics like the H-index for publications or craftspeople. They have tangible outputs.
Yeah.
Knowledge workers, it's hard to measure an idea.
So no clear metrics. Then what?
They fall into busyness as a proxy for productivity. Focus on what's visible, meetings, emails, being connected. Easier to measure, but not necessarily valuable output.
Prioritizing what's easy to measure, not what's important. They mention Alyssa Rubin, New York Times reporter, tweets regularly, but her main value is investigative reporting. Tweeting is visible, but not the best use of her time.
Exactly. It highlights the question, what are we really valuing? This leads into internet centrism, how our reliance on the internet might be shaping our values, work habits, without us realizing it.
So we're talking like becoming too reliant on the internet.
They cite Neil Postman, who coined technopoly. We blindly embrace technology, assuming anything internet-related is good, anything else is irrelevant.
That's strong. Are they saying we're ignoring other ways of working because of this internet is everything mentality?
They give examples, like the backlash against Jonathan Franzen, the novelist, criticized social media and literature. People dismissed him, not engaged with the argument.
Shut down anyone who questions the internet.
Right, it's this technopoly. There's this example, refrigerated trucking company advertising its Facebook page on its trucks. Does a trucking company need a Facebook page?
Makes you think, right? In this culture, every company needs social media. This section, it raises questions about how tech is shaping us.
It is provocative, challenges us to think critically about our relationship with technology. Are we prioritizing the digital world over other things?
We've talked about the value, the challenges, and this internet-centric culture. But what about the benefits of deep work? Why bother in this distracting world? What does it give us?
The book has a whole section on neurological and psychological arguments for deep work. It starts with Winifred Gallagher, who wrote Rapt Attention and Happiness.
Okay, tell me more.
Gallagher was diagnosed with cancer and decided to focus on the good. Found that intentional focus had a surprisingly powerful effect on her well-being.
So how does that connect to deep work?
They argue that when we spend our day in a shallow state driven by distractions, we're training our brains to be stressed. These shallow activities actually create, neurologically, an understanding of work dominated by negativity.
Constant demands and interruptions. Your brain is on high alert.
Exactly. They contrast that with deep work. Focus your attention on something meaningful, creates a different neurological state, more likely to lead to satisfaction.
So more than just getting things done, it's shaping how our brains experience work.
Key insight. And they connect it to flow states. Mihaly, the psychologist, flow states are when you're completely absorbed in an activity, lose track of time.
Oh, absolutely. Like you disappear into the work.
And his research shows that these states are inherently rewarding. Deep work, because of the intense focus, is well suited for generating those.
So more than productivity, cultivating a state of mind that leads to deeper satisfaction, even happiness.
Precisely, and it goes deeper. The book delves into the philosophical arguments, drawing on ideas from Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Kelly, who wrote All Things Shining. They argue that modern life, with its emphasis on individualism, can lead to meaninglessness.
So free to choose, but also lost.
Exactly. They suggest that craftsmanship offers a way to combat this. Craftsmanship, with its focus on developing mastery, provides a sense of purpose. Meaning exists outside the individual, not just finding meaning within ourselves, but in the work itself.
And how does this tie back to deep work?
They argue deep work is essential for true craftsmanship. You can't master a skill without intense concentration.
Okay, we've explored the value, the challenges, and the incredible benefits psychologically, even philosophically. But now, how do we actually do it? What are the strategies for bringing deep work into our lives?
This is where the book gets really practical. It outlines strategies for integrating deep work, starting with 4 philosophies for scheduling it.
So there isn't just one right way.
Exactly, depends on you. The first is the monastic approach, going off the grid to focus, eliminating shallow obligations.
Intense. Any real-world examples?
Donald Knuth, the computer scientist, stopped using email entirely to focus on his writing. And Neil Stephenson, the science fiction writer, avoids email and social media, sees them as distractions.
I see how that works for someone creating worlds, writing stories. But what about people who can't just disconnect?
That's where the other philosophies come in, the bimodal approach, alternating between intense deep work and engaging with shallow activities, like switching modes.
Example.
Carl Jung, the psychologist, retreated to his isolated tower, but then returned to his clinical practice.
Intentional blocks of time within your existing schedule.
Exactly. And they give Adam Grant, Wharton professor, batches his teaching into one semester, other semester for research. He also schedules deep work retreats. Find a rhythm.
The third philosophy is the rhythmic approach. What's that?
Establishing a regular rhythm for deep work. Make it a consistent part of your routine.
So instead of relying on willpower, you build a habit.
Exactly. This approach is valuable for maintaining momentum, consistency, even when facing deadlines.
Makes sense. Easier to stick to a routine than constantly motivate yourself. What's the fourth one?
The journalistic approach. Like journalists who can shift into writing mode quickly, seizing opportunities whenever they arise. It's about flexibility, adapting.
Taking advantage of downtime for focused work.
Exactly. Walter Isaacson wrote a 900-page biography while working as a magazine editor. He'd squeeze in writing sessions whenever he could, even just 20 minutes.
Wow. So the book offers these philosophies as starting points, but ultimately it's about finding what works for you.
Exactly. Integrate deep work into your life sustainably. And these philosophies are just the beginning. The book offers specific strategies to amplify your practice. Go beyond just scheduling.
Okay, this is getting interesting. What are some of those strategies?
One of the most fascinating is the grand gesture, making a dramatic change to your environment routine to prioritize deep work.
That sounds intriguing.
They give the example of Bill Gates, who'd think weeks, isolating himself in a cabin to focus on big ideas, creating a ritual around your work.
Going all in on focus. Any other examples?
Peter Shankman, an entrepreneur, booked a round-trip business class ticket to Tokyo just to write without distractions.
Wow, commitment. So the idea is that by making a big gesture, you increase motivation and focus.
Exactly. Breaking out of routine, creating an environment that supports deep work. But there are less extreme strategies, too. They talk about the 4 disciplines of execution, 4DX.
That sounds interesting. What's that?
Developed for businesses, but it can be applied to personal goals. The first discipline is focusing on the wildly important goal. For deep work, that would be to increase the number of hours you spend in deep focus.
Okay, makes sense. How do you measure that?
That's the second discipline. Acting on the lead measures. These are the activities that drive the results you want. So for deep work, the lead measure is the number of hours spent working deeply.
Not just the outcome, but the actions that lead to it. What's the third one?
Keep a compelling scoreboard. Make your progress visible. Track your deep work hours on a chart or a calendar. The author used an index card to track his deep work hours each week.
Simple, but effective. What's the fourth discipline?
Create a cadence of accountability. Establish a regular rhythm for reviewing your progress, making adjustments, not just setting a goal, but checking in regularly.
So the 40X framework provides structure for setting a goal, tracking your progress, holding yourself accountable.
Exactly. It can be a powerful tool. It's about structure and discipline. But it's not just about systems. The book emphasizes something much simpler, shutting down at the end of the workday.
I have to admit, I struggle with that. Why is that so important?
Several reasons. First, it allows your brain to rest. When you're constantly working or even thinking about work, your brain doesn't recover.
So even when I'm not working, my brain is still on.
Exactly. And that leads to mental fatigue over time. A shutdown ritual signals to your brain to relax. You create a boundary, work time, and personal time. There's even research showing downtime can improve cognitive function.
So by taking a break, you're more productive. I like that.
That's the idea. The book describes how the unconscious mind can keep working on problems even when you're not consciously thinking about them.
So you're giving your brain a chance to do its best work behind the scenes.
Exactly. The book also points out the psychological benefits. When you know you're done with work, you can fully relax and enjoy your personal time, no guilt or stress.
So you're creating a sense of closure that helps you relax.
Precisely. Crucial for mental health. The book offers tips for implementing this shutdown ritual.
Okay, I'm all ears. I definitely need to get better at this.
One key tip is to have a specific end-of-day routine that you follow consistently. They also suggest reviewing all your incomplete tasks, making sure you have a plan for completing them. Don't go to bed with a bunch of loose ends swirling around in your head.
Tying up those mental loose ends.
Exactly. And the final step is to have a set phrase you say to yourself that indicates you're done. It might sound silly, but it helps. Like, shut down complete.
I can see how that would help. So the shutdown ritual is a powerful tool for deep work and well-being.
Absolutely. Recognizing rest is just as important as work.
This has been so insightful. We've talked about scheduling and shutting down. But what about all the distractions? How do we resist the urge to check email or scroll when we're trying to focus?
The million-dollar question. That's where embracing boredom comes in.
Wait, boredom? Isn't that what we're supposed to avoid?
We think that, but the book argues that boredom is essential for deep work. We're so used to constant stimulation, we've forgotten how to just be with our own thoughts.
Lost the ability to just sit and think.
Exactly. And they give examples of how to cultivate this. Resist the urge to pull out your phone every time you have a few minutes. Just sit there and be bored.
So instead of checking email in line at the store, just let your mind wander.
Precisely. It's training your brain to resist distractions. Like flossing, we know it's good, but we neglect it. We assume we can just become focused. But it's a skill. Needs training.
Building mental muscle, not just willpower, it's strengthening your ability to focus. Do they talk about how we train this focus muscle?
They do. Adam Marlin, a successful businessman, he embraced the daily study of the Talmud. Requires intense concentration, helped him develop his mental capacity for deep work, engage in activities that require focus, even if not related to work, strengthen your focus in other areas.
Cross-training for your brain.
Exactly. Especially important in our tech-saturated world. They highlight research by Clifford Nass. He studied multitasking. Found that people who do it frequently actually rewire their brains to be more easily distracted.
Scary. Constantly checking our phones, switching tasks, or making it harder to focus.
That's what the research suggests. That's why embracing boredom is so important. Train our brains to be comfortable with low stimulation so we can resist distractions.
This is making me rethink my phone. We talked about scheduling internet blocks and productive meditation. Any other strategies?
The internet Sabbath. Disconnecting completely for a set period, a day, weekend, even longer.
Ooh, a digital detox.
Yes, but not just abstaining from technology. It's about using that time to engage in activities that nourish your mind and soul. Spending time in nature, reading, having meaningful conversations.
Reminding ourselves there's a whole world offline.
Exactly. And the book argues that these types of activities help to restore our attention. Not about rejecting technology, but finding a healthy balance.
So we've covered embracing boredom and even taking breaks from tech. What about our workspace? How can we create an environment that supports deep work?
That's a great question. And that leads us to creating rituals and routines that support deep work. It's not just about willpower, it's about setting ourselves up for success with the right environment.
So our environment impacts our focus. Makes sense. What are some strategies?
One strategy is to designate a specific workspace, a separate room, a quiet corner, or even a spot at your kitchen table.
Creating a space that you associate with deep work. Training your brain.
Exactly. And make the space as distraction-free as possible. Turn off your phone, close your email, and eliminate any other potential interruptions. They even suggest a ritual for entering and exiting this space, something as simple as lighting a candle or putting on noise-canceling headphones.
I love that. Creating a mental cue to help your brain transition into deep work mode. But what about the actual work itself? Any advice on structuring deep work sessions?
They do. They suggest setting clear rules, setting a timer, or committing to working on a task until it's completed, creating structure and accountability.
Being intentional, not drifting.
Right. They emphasize taking breaks, even during those sessions. Short breaks to stretch, walk around, look away from your screen, give your brain a chance to reset.
So taking breaks makes you more productive.
That's the idea. And they suggest using breaks to engage in activities that promote relaxation and creativity, like listening to music, meditating, or spending time in nature.
So taking a break from the mental state of deep work, too, not just the task itself. I love how this book combines practical strategies with how our minds work.
That's what makes it so effective. It's not just about hacks, it's about a philosophy of work.
You mentioned background noise earlier. What's the thinking there?
They suggest experimenting with different types of background noise. Silence is best for some, others find it distracting. Try white noise, nature sounds, or ambient music.
Finding what works for you. No one size fits all.
Exactly. And they recommend adjusting the temperature and lighting in your workspace. Not too hot, not too cold, adequate lighting.
Things we can control. Not waiting for perfect circumstances, but creating them.
Exactly. They also emphasize ergonomics. Comfortable chair, desk at the right height. When you're comfortable physically, you're less likely to be distracted by aches and pains.
Creating a deep work environment is about more than just eliminating distractions. It's about creating a space that's physically and mentally conducive to focus and concentration.
I love that analogy. Creating a space where you can do your best thinking and creative work.
So we've talked about embracing boredom, training our brains, and creating a deep work environment. But distractions from other people. How do we manage interruptions and protect our time?
That's where becoming hard to reach comes in.
Okay, I like that. Setting boundaries.
Exactly. In today's world, we're constantly bombarded with requests for our time and attention. Makes deep work incredibly difficult.
We're expected to be available 24/7.
Right. And the book argues that we need to reclaim our time and attention, be more assertive, setting clear expectations about when we're available.
How do we do that without being rude?
They suggest scheduling blocks of time for deep work and being clear you're unavailable during those times, like a do not disturb sign.
Not just hoping people will respect your time, but actively blocking it off.
Exactly. And you can use technology to enforce these boundaries. Turn off your phone, close email, use a website blocker.
Taking control of your digital environment.
Exactly. You can even use your out-of-office reply to set expectations for when you'll respond to emails. Not ignoring people, but being proactive.
Takes the pressure off of immediate responses. Any other tips?
Be mindful about how you communicate. Instead of a quick email leading to back and forth, take the time to provide more context information in your initial message.
Respecting everyone's time.
Right. They even suggest having a conversation with colleagues about your deep work practices. Explain why it's important and how they can help you. creating a more focused work environment.
Great idea. It takes the pressure off you.
Right. The book argues that when we're open about our needs, we get support.
Fostering a culture of respect for deep work. I love how this all ties together. Creating a space, being intentional with time, communicating clearly, taking control of your attention and time so that you can focus on the work that truly matters.
You got it. Making deep work a priority, not something you squeeze in.
So we've covered embracing boredom, training our brains, creating a deep work environment, becoming hard to reach. I want to zoom out. What's the ultimate goal? Why are we doing this in the first place?
That's a great question to end on. Leads to the book's final rule, which is finding your deep work purpose.
Okay, tell me more. What's that mean?
Identifying the values and goals that are most important to you and then using deep work to achieve them, not being productive for the sake of it. The book argues that deep work is most meaningful when it aligns with our deepest values and aspirations.
How do we find this purpose?
Starts with asking yourself some big questions. What do I want to achieve in my life? What kind of impact do I want to make? What brings me joy and fulfillment?
Getting to the heart of what matters.
Exactly. The book argues that once we have a clear sense of purpose, we can start making choices that support it. Choose work that's meaningful and challenging, set goals that are aligned with our values, and use deep work to achieve those goals.
It's like deep work becomes a pathway to living in alignment with what truly matters. It's not just about getting things done. It's about creating a life of purpose and meaning.
You got it. And in today's world, that's more important than ever. We're constantly bombarded with distractions. It's easy to get caught up in the busyness. But deep work offers a way to reclaim our time and our attention.
I'm really struck by that idea. Deep work isn't just about productivity. It's about aligning our actions with our values, creating a life that feels meaningful.
And the book offers a roadmap. It provides a framework for understanding the value, identifying the challenges we face, and developing the skills to make it a sustainable part of our lives.
This has been so insightful. It's making me rethink how I approach my work and my life. I'm curious, are there any specific tips that stood out to you?
One that comes to mind is deliberately scheduling time for deep work, even if it's just for short periods each day, making it a non-negotiable part of your schedule.
Being proactive, making deep work a priority.
Exactly, and they talk about the importance of the shutdown ritual, signaling to your brain to relax, disengage from work so you can recharge.
That's something I need to work on. I'm notorious for checking email right before bed.
It's common, but even small changes can make a big difference.
What about all the distractions we face? Any advice for dealing with those?
They talk about being selective about the tools and technologies we use, how they impact our focus and ability to do deep work. Experiment with turning off notifications or even taking a break from social media.
Taking control of our digital environment instead of letting it control us.
Exactly. And they talk about setting boundaries, which we talked about, making it clear when you're available and when you're not so you can protect your time.
Being assertive, communicating our needs clearly. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with.
It's a challenge, for sure. But the book offers a lot of strategies for navigating those challenges and creating a work environment that supports deep work.
This has been such a rich conversation. I'm feeling inspired to really dive into deep work and see how it can transform my own work and my life. What's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this?
I'd say deep work is a skill that anyone can develop. Not just for monks, writers, or tech CEOs. It's for anyone who wants to do their best work, achieve their goals, and live a more meaningful life.
Powerful message.
And it's one that I believe is more important now than ever. In a world that is increasingly distracted and superficial, deep work is a superpower. It's the ability to focus, create, and make a real difference.
And that's a skill worth cultivating. I'm feeling inspired.
Me too.
Well, thank you for joining me on this deep dive into deep work. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a joy. I love diving deep into these ideas.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive helps you unlock the power of deep work in your own life. It's about getting clear on our values and then making sure our work aligns right.
Exactly, yeah. And the book argues, once we know our deep work purpose, we can make choices to support it. Choose work that's meaningful and challenging, set goals that align with those values, and use deep work to achieve them.
It's about creating a life that is both successful and fulfilling.
Yeah.
Which I think we all want.
Precisely. Deep work isn't just about getting things done. It's a way to live a more meaningful and purposeful life.
It's like a pathway to living in alignment with what truly matters to us. Let's circle back to some practical strategies. We were talking about embracing boredom, strengthen our focus. You mentioned the internet Sabbath, taking a break. Are there other techniques for training our brains to, like, handle boredom?
The book mentions memorizing a deck of cards, creating a mental image for each card, then associating those images with specific locations, like in your home.
So you're creating a mental journey, and each card is like a vivid image. Sounds fun.
It is a bit like a game, and as you practice, you're training your brain to focus, holding information in your working memory.
Like a mental workout.
Yeah.
And they're saying this carries over to other areas.
Exactly. By improving your memory, you're also improving your ability to focus, concentrate in general.
So we've talked about boredom, training our brains.
Yeah.
But what about our environment? How can we, create a workspace that actually helps with deep work?
That's the next rule, creating rituals and routines. It's not just willpower, it's setting ourselves up with the right environment.
Our environment matters. Makes sense. What strategies do they suggest?
Designating a specific workspace could be a separate room, a quiet corner, or even just a spot at your kitchen table.
A space that you associate with deep work, like training your brain to shift into focus mode.
Exactly. And make it distraction-free. Turn off the phone, close email, eliminate those interruptions. Even establish a ritual for entering and exiting the space, lighting a candle or putting on noise-canceling headphones.
I love those ideas. Creating a mental cue for your brain. But what about the work itself? Any advice on how to, structure deep work sessions?
They do, setting clear rules, setting a timer, or committing to working on a specific task until it's finished. It's about structure and accountability.
Being intentional, not drifting.
Right, and they emphasize taking breaks, even during those deep work sessions, short breaks to stretch, walk around, or just, look away from the screen.
So taking breaks actually makes you more productive.
That's the idea. They suggest using those breaks to engage in activities that promote relaxation and creativity, listening to music, meditating, or spending time in nature.
Taking a break from the mental state of deep work, too, not just the task. I love how they tie these practical strategies with how our minds work.
That's what makes it so effective. It's not just about hacks, but a whole philosophy.
You mentioned background noise. What about that?
They suggest experimenting with different types of background noise. For some, silence is best. Others find it distracting. Try white noise, nature sounds, ambient music.
Finding what works for you.
Exactly. And they recommend adjusting the temperature, lighting in your workspace.
Those are things we can control. Not waiting for the perfect circumstances, but creating them.
Exactly. They emphasize ergonomics, too. Comfortable chair, desk at the right height. When you're physically comfortable, less likely to be distracted.
Creating a deep work environment is about more than just eliminating distractions, isn't it? It's about creating a space that's both physically and mentally conducive to focus.
Love that analogy. Creating a space where you can really do your best work.
Okay, so we've talked about boredom, training our brain, the environment. But what about those distractions that come from other people? How do we manage interruptions, protect our time?
That's where becoming hard to reach comes in.
Sounds like it's about setting boundaries.
Exactly. We're constantly bombarded with requests for our time, our attention. Makes deep work really difficult.
Like we're expected to always be available.
Right. The book argues that we need to reclaim our time and attention. We need to be more assertive, setting those expectations.
How do we do that without being rude?
They suggest scheduling blocks of time for deep work, making it clear you're unavailable during those times.
So not just hoping people will respect your time, but actually blocking it off.
Exactly. And you can use technology to help. Turn off the phone, close email, use a website blocker.
Taking control.
Exactly. Even use your out-of-office reply to set expectations. Not ignoring people, but being proactive.
That takes the pressure off. Any other tips?
They suggest being more mindful about how you communicate. Instead of a quick email that just leads to more back and forth, take the time to give more context, information in your initial message.
Respecting everyone's time.
Exactly. And they even suggest having a conversation with colleagues about your deep work practices. Explain why it's important, how they can help.
That's a great idea, getting them on board.
Right. The book argues that when we're open and honest about our needs, we're more likely to get that support.
It's about fostering a culture of respect for deep work, isn't it? I love how this all ties together, creating that space, being intentional with time, and communicating clearly. It's about taking control so you can focus on what truly matters.
You got it. It's about making deep work a priority, not something you just squeeze in.
So we've covered a lot. Embracing boredom, training our brains, the right environment, becoming hard to reach. But I want to zoom out for a second. what's the ultimate goal here? Why are we doing all of this?
Great question. Leads to the book's final rule, which is finding your deep work purpose.
Okay, what does that mean?
Identifying the values and goals that are most important to you. Then using deep work as a tool to achieve them. It's not about being productive just to be productive. Deep work is most meaningful when it aligns with, our deepest values and aspirations.
So how do we find this deep work purpose?
It starts by asking yourself those big questions. What do I want to achieve in my life? What kind of impact do I want to have? What brings me joy?
It's about getting to the heart of what really matters to you.
Exactly. The book argues that once we have that clear sense of purpose, we can start making choices that support it. Choose work that's meaningful, that's challenging, set goals that are aligned with our values, and then use deep work to get there.
So deep work becomes a pathway to living in alignment with what truly matters. It's not just about getting things done. It's about creating a life that has purpose.
You got it. And in today's world, I think that's more important than ever. We are constantly bombarded with distractions, and it's so easy to get caught up in the busyness of it all and lose sight of what really matters. But deep work gives us a way to reclaim our time, reclaim our attention, and focus on the things that bring us joy.
That's such a powerful idea. Deep work isn't just about productivity. It's about aligning our actions with our values
Yeah.
and creating a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling.
And the book really does offer a roadmap for doing just that. It provides this framework for understanding the value, identifying the challenges, and developing the skills to make deep work a sustainable part of our lives.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I'm feeling so inspired to dive into deep work and see how it can transform my own work in my life. Are there any specific tips or strategies from the book that really stood out to you?
One that comes to mind is deliberately scheduling time for deep work. Even if it's just for, short periods each day, making it a non-negotiable part of your schedule.
Being proactive, making it a priority.
Exactly. And they also talk about the shutdown ritual, signaling to your brain that it's time to relax, disengage from work so you can come back the next day refreshed.
That's something I definitely need to work on. I am so guilty of checking email right before bed.
It's a common habit, but even small changes, like avoiding screens for an hour before bed can make a big difference.
What about all the distractions that we face, throughout the day? Does a book offer any advice for dealing with those?
They talk about being selective about the tools and technologies that we use and being mindful of how they impact, our focus and our ability to do deep work. So, for example, they suggest experimenting with turning off notifications or even taking a break from social media altogether.
Taking control instead of letting it control us.
Exactly.
Yep.
And they also talk about setting boundaries, which we talked about earlier, making it clear when you're available, when you're not, to protect your time.
It's about being assertive, communicating your needs. I think that's something a lot of people struggle with, especially when, busyness is rewarded.
It is a challenge for sure. But the book offers so many good strategies for navigating those challenges and creating a work environment that supports deep work.
This has been such a rich conversation. I'm feeling inspired to really dive into deep work and see how it can transform my own work and life. What's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I'd say it's that deep work is a skill that anyone can develop. It's not just for, monks or writers or tech CEOs. It's for anyone who wants to do their best work, achieve their goals, and live a more meaningful life.
That's a powerful message.
And I think it's a message that is more important now than ever before. In a world that's increasingly distracted and superficial, deep work is a superpower. It's the ability to focus, to create, and to make a real difference in the world.
And that's a skill worth cultivating.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive into deep work. It's been such a pleasure talking with you.
It's been a joy. I love diving deep into these ideas.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive empowers you to embrace the power of deep work in your own life. I think people feel like they just don't have time for deep work, but this book, it pushes back on that, right?
It does, yeah. It's not about finding hours of uninterrupted time. It's more about being intentional with what you do have.
We talked about scheduling blocks, creating a workspace. Any other strategies for, making deep work a regular thing, even if you're busy?
Oh, absolutely. They talk about this idea of productive meditation. Ever notice how you get your best ideas in the shower or out on a walk?
All the time. My mind just wanders more freely when I'm not at my desk.
That's it. Productive meditation, using those low intensity activities for, thinking, problem solving. The author, he uses his walks to work through outlines, even solve research problems.
Turning downtime into thinking time. I love that.
Right. A way to fit deep work in without big schedule changes.
Being mindful of those in-between moments. We talked about the shutdown ritual before. Why is that so key for deep work?
It's about separation, work, and personal life. Your brain needs that recharge. Like, work stays on one side, personal time on the other.
Protecting downtime, being present when you're not working.
Exactly. Have a routine, end of the day. Turning off the computer, clearing your desk, listing tasks for tomorrow. Signal to your brain, time to relax.
It's all about those mental transitions, isn't it? Work to rest.
It is. And the book says, avoid work stuff an hour before bed, no email.
Ooh, tough one. Guilty as charged, but I know it messes with sleep.
Right, that blue light. But also, checking work emails, your mind's still going.
It's the mental stimulation, not just the light.
Exactly. Even small changes help your sleep, well-being.
A buffer zone,
Yeah.
work and sleep.
That's a great way to put it. Give your brain a break.
This has been eye-opening, honestly. I'm feeling inspired. Any final thoughts for our listener as we wrap up?
I'd say deep work. It's a journey, not a destination. Experiment, adjust, find what works for you.
Progress over perfection.
Right. And remember, the benefits, they go beyond just getting stuff done. It's about connecting deeper with yourself, your work, the world.
So well said. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
And to our listener, we hope this deep dive helps you unlock the power of deep work in your own life.